Welcome to the Agent Upgrade Podcast with your hosts Jasmine, Krnjetin, and Alan Corey, where we learn the strategies of top producing real estate agents so you have the tools to upgrade your own real estate career.
It's Agent Upgrade time. Good to see you, Jasmine.
Hello, everyone. How is it going out there?
It's another beautiful day in real estate agent land, hopefully for everyone listening as well. It's a weird time in the market, but I feel like I say that every week. Like we're always, that's to me what keeps our job exciting and new and fresh. Every day is different. You got different clients, you got different market conditions, different interest rates, different buyers' needs, different real estate products. I've got more and more clients now wanting to get into the Airbnb business, which, when I started out 22 years ago as a real estate investor, that wasn't even a business that existed. And now that's a big portion of my clients. Like, it's really interesting how the real estate market can change. And I don't know, like, I've started seeing, at least through hard money loans, Airbnb loans being done like that. These are just new products, new business types.
Interesting stuff out there for sure. I think that I feel like we've seen a little bit of a slowdown in the Atlanta market, especially relatively to which part of the year we're in. It's May, and I feel like, but things are starting to pick back up. So it's a strange time to see a little bit of a slowdown, I feel.
Right.
Because usually by the time we hit May, we're full swing spring market. But I think the interest rates bumping up as much as they did created a little bit of uncertainty. And then, all the things going on with the stock market and some of the people losing money in the stock market. I think that's creating I think that there are some statistics that show how much for every, so many percentage points that that we lose in the stock market, that's, that translates to a certain number of dollars that people are going to spend less. So it's, it's all emotion. It's all emotion.
I think you're 100% right. Like, most of my clients and my team's clients, their down payment comes from their stock markets. Like, they cash out some stocks. If their stock market goes down, their purchasing power for a house goes down. At least that's their thought process. And a lot of them are just trained. Like, you only have to put 20% down. Don't put anything less than 20% down, and trying to re-educating them that, like, hey, interest rates are still fairly low historically. Putting 5% down, 10% down is completely fine and acceptable. And honestly, for a long time, I was anti-adjustable rate mortgages. And now sort of I'm seeing an 5-1 ARM option. It's not so terrible. Like, if you, I sort of think interest rates may settle and bounce around, and 5 years go back, maybe something more lower than they are now. So to me, it's buy a house now, because the prices are going to keep going up. And so if you have to do that ARM or 5% down or 10% down, whatever it may be, that's going to save you more money than waiting till the stock market comes back, waiting till interest rates are lower. Whatever you're waiting for is usually always a losing game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm excited to kind of pick the brain of our guests on all these things. This is an Atlanta veteran, Rob Smith. And I'm excited. He's a big player here in Atlanta, and I know he's going to have tremendous knowledge to share. He's trying new things too on the listing side, so not just buyers. He's very involved in putting up some of his listings on auctions, which I can't wait to talk to him about how that came about, the benefits, how that works for a realtor. But a member of my team recently won an auction of one of Rob's listings. So it worked out on both sides, but definitely want to dig into the details there. So without further ado, Rob Smith, welcome to the Agent Upgrade Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Welcome. So tell us all your secrets. Let's start there.
So I got started in real estate, I got my license in 2004. Just because I had 3 months where I didn't have to travel for my full-time job. And I'd gone through 3 real estate transactions already, buy, sell that one, and then buy again our personal properties. And the three experiences were very different. Like, a couple of them were not so great. One was really bad, and one was just absolutely awesome. And they were so varied that I said, you know what, if we're going to do this again, I'm going to hire a real estate agent and pay them a lot of money. I kind of want to know what's going on, what's legal, what's ethical, what's the right thing to do, not so right thing to do. let's go take a real estate class, $500, right? Not a big deal to me at the time. And there were 3 months where I didn't have to travel. So I went to school at night, learned a lot. It was very eye-opening. Didn't really want to do anything with the license when I got it. A couple of years later, my partner and I at the time bought an investment property behind our own personal property. Didn't even really want to all we wanted to do was clean up the weeds in the backyard and put it back on the market again, maybe. But once we got the lawnmower out and, we're finished, we were like, okay, this looks really cool. Let's, what if we went in and changed the carpet? What if we did this? And 7 months later, we have an investment property that we want to put back on the market. And I thought, hey, I have this real estate license. Wow, I forgot about this. It's in my back pocket. What do I do with this? And I met up with a fantastic broker that I'd been referred to in town who agreed to hang my license there for this one opportunity. He knew where I'd come from, which was a marketing and advertising background. That's what I spent 10 years in. And he said, Rob, we really don't let just agents come here to do a one-off thing. You got to have at least 4 or 5 transactions a year to be doing this. And you've got a full-time job. Tell you what, we'll let you do it this one time. If this works out, I'd love for you to think about becoming a real estate salesperson. I thought, I'm not a salesperson. I just want to save on commission. That's what I was doing. I was trying to save on the agent commission because I think we might've been making 10 grand on this whole investment. We just wanted our backyard, safe and sound and cleaned up. And we wanted a new neighbor back there. So he said, do it one time, see what happens. What I didn't realize is that it's about marketing and advertising. It's about PR. It's about all of these things that I'd learned in my past career and all of these relationships that I was able to build through our clients and customers all coming back into play. So I went into work late one morning so that I could put the property into the system in the actual brokerage office. I had 4 photographs. You guys remember when you could put 4 photos in the MLS? I had the 4 best photos that I had taken with some kind of low res digital camera and then had printed out. And I don't even remember how we got them to the MLS at the time, but I had a full price offer that night. And the buyer agent, who was also a part-timer, and I were literally racing down to the house to see which one of us could get his buyer in the door first from full-time jobs. We were under contract and sold a few weeks later. My broker said, I want you to do something. Let's see if you want to do this in the future. I want you to take a look at the profit that you made from the investment. And I want you to look at the 7 months that it took you guys to do this. And I want you to break down how many hours you spent and what profit you made. Remember, you split that between you and your partner. So it's half of whatever you come up with, right? So then I want you to take a look at the amount of time that you put into this. If you were really thinking of yourself like a real estate agent and a seller called you, when did they call you? When did you start putting your time into this? Take a look at the hours you spent doing that. What would have happened? You had a buyer agent on the other side, which you did, and you kept 3% of the sales commission. What would you have made? He said, break this down. I'm going to go out and grab a cup of coffee. We'll come back in and you tell me what the numbers are. The real estate agent side was 10 times higher than the investment number on a dollars made per hour. And that's when it clicked. And he says, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I think I want to take some equity out of my house and put some money away so I can have a little bank to live on, quit my job at the end of the year and join your company full time. So that's what I did. As soon as I joined January 2007, I was paired up with a mentor. They had a wonderful mentor program. I happened to luck out because the round robin got turned to the person who actually started and was running the mentor program. And she was my mentor. And funny enough, as we started the first few months together, we realized that we thought a lot alike. We were literally each other's yin and yang. And we decided to form a team. And I thought, remember, he told me that I needed to sell at least 4 houses that first year in order to actually stay at the brokerage and just even have my license there. And that was my goal. Let me sell 4 houses just so I can keep and I had money banked away for a whole year to just okay, what if I just screw up royally, or I want to try this one thing out, or, want to buy that thing. And instead of selling 4, she and I together sold 44.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So, I think when you get intentional about something and whatever you focus on, it will actually expand. If you're spending the right energy on it and you're staying on it, not just 30 minutes, not just an hour, but a full 8 hours a day. And then what happens if you do 2 days? What happens if you do a week? Anything that you focus on at the end of a week or 2, your life can actually change and you're doing a completely different job at the end of that. So that's a little story about how I got started and kind of what springboarded my success today.
Well, what are some of those steps that you and your mentor did to do 44 deals that first year?
Well, the first was looking at the relationship that I was already building with my mentor, setting up kind of like what we meant to each other and how we were helping each other out, understanding the dynamic of that relationship such that I could use it to my advantage business-wise and meet my goals. She could use it to her advantage business-wise and meet her goals. And if those things lined up pretty tightly in this Venn diagram, I guess you see how these circles are almost there and you can kind of see my eye going through it.
Yeah.
See your eye going through a Venn diagram like that, you know you're almost on the same page with somebody and you're still going to have some overlap. And that's what we did. So that was the first step, making sure that our vision, our goals, and our reason for being in this were aligned. And the second thing was continue doing the good work that we were doing with the relationship that we had developing. And then last of all, figure out who was going to be making decisions and who was going to be some decision. We're all making decisions. How are we going to work this out if we were a team? And last of all, making sure we were part of a brokerage that helped us build our business like a business, run our business like a business. And so we did have to make the hard decision of actually changing brokerages that fit our business strategy and our business plan. And from that point forward, it was just beautiful. We had a wonderful 4 or 5 years together. She wanted to continue on and do, her business in a very particular direction, a certain path of growth. And I wanted to do something else. And today, we're both wildly successful and have a high regard for each other. It's not that a business didn't work out. It's just that it needed to blossom beyond what the two of us together could do. And we both wanted to build something bigger ourselves. So that was great.
That's awesome. And being having a background of marketing, quick story, it works. And I don't know how this came about, but I had a client from San Francisco moving to Atlanta. And like every time I'm talking to her, oh, we got these homes, how about this? We got this off market. And she would end every conversation. Have you talked to Rob Smith yet? And
really?
I was like, yeah. I was like, the realtor? Like, yeah. I heard he has a lot of off market stuff in the neighborhoods we're looking for. And I was like, yeah, all right. And so I was like, I think I probably just, whatever, I'm your realtor. The first call, second call, hey, so have you talked to Rob Smith yet? I'm like, oh, okay, fine. I'm going to call Rob Smith. And I don't know if you remember talking, but I called you up and I'm like, listen, my client, I think, wants you to be their agent or something. They think that you know everything in Atlanta real estate. I promised them I would call you. And I think you shared whatever listings you had coming up. And then that satisfied their needs. So you had ripples, and that's the first interaction we had together. But
I hope it worked out. Did we work together?
I don't think so. I don't think it led to anything, but it led to our first conversation. But I was like, wow, I got to start paying attention to what Rob Smith's doing. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I think a lot of agents don't quite realize when they get into the business how much it is about sales and marketing. I think a lot of people think like they're going to be selling homes, so they get kind of heady about the laws and inspections and roofs and things like that. But really, the way you get business, obviously, you have to take care of your clients and you have to know your stuff. And like even in the mortgage world, like we have to take ethics courses like regularly. Like you have to do all that. But it's so much about marketing. And I had a very similar experience because I was in business for about 8 years before I met my husband, who became my business partner. And once we formed that partnership, our business just took off exponentially. And so I think it's really important. Like those are the two takeaways I've gotten so far from our conversation is like having a business partner that you can be the yin and yang, because you can't be everything, right? Like you always have that one person that's more creative, one person that's more systems driven. And if you can find that partnership, maybe even more so, find a partnership with somebody that's different than you, right? Because you're going to want to form a partnership with somebody that's similar to you. So you're both going to be great salespeople, or you both are going to like the same things. But I would say forming a partnership with somebody who has different strengths than you, that would be important. Did you feel that was kind of like you guys, you mentioned that you guys were kind of just completed a whole together. And that's
I believe so. Yeah, at the time. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that was important to us, and I'd learned this from my past experience, and so had she, we wanted to make absolutely sure that our vision and our values were aligned. The vision and values aligned, you can still bring your own independent and your unique skill sets to the table to help the entire team meet that vision as long as you have the same set of values, right? I'm not talking about political affiliation, these other types of things, but how do we do business when push comes to shove and things get really hard? What is the right thing to do? And those are the kind of things that can really make or break a relationship, which ultimately will affect the business and start moving it backwards and disintegrate it, right? As long as you've got the right vision and values in place with each other, and everybody's is a little bit different the way they operate, and you put that in front of, once you decide that as a business, and then you put that in front of requirements for team members to join you, whether they're administrative staff or independent contractor real estate agents, then you've got a winning formula right there. And you never stray from that. And when you find out that somebody's just not quite a right fit, you can always go back and say, well, here's the big chunk that we missed and really didn't get right on the alignment of that vision or that values requirement and what we were bringing to the table with that person. So that's something we made absolutely sure we were doing in the first place. We did bring different skill sets, but we made sure we were on the same page there.
And I want to piggyback off what you were saying, Jasmine, but getting heady, like the new agents are sort of like, oh, they're all worried about the ethics, the selling that, like they think they're selling homes. And I think what Rob is saying is, and you pick up on it too, is you're selling yourself. You're trying to sell yourself. You're a package of, this is the system, this is the trust you're going to get. You're going to get this from me, and I'm going to lead you on that path of selling homes. But I think what you're really good at marketing, Rob and Jasmine as well, is you're marketing yourself, and people are buying into you and your teams and your systems, and that leads to your success.
Absolutely.
And it's a little bit uncomfortable too, because like, I think especially like I find like with a lot of the social media that a lot of agents are doing, they're so much more comfortable being like, oh, look at this pretty house, or let me walk you through this house, as opposed to like you being the one that's in the spotlight saying like, hey, I have this great advice for you if you're looking to buy a home. And it's a way more uncomfortable position to be in. Like, I noticed that with other mortgage bankers, they would so much rather post about interest rates and the feds on social media than to like get on there and like start talking about like, something it takes a lot more effort, and it's also a little bit more comfortable. But I think that the marketing piece is, I feel before social media took off, real estate agents had to do marketing, but it was different. Like it was, dropping off flyers or going to a social event or something like that. But now it's like literally like you got to have your stories posted every single day. You got to be front and center. And then next thing you know, like, especially with like reels and things like that, somebody in California knows that Rob Smith is the guy, he's the guy that's got all the listings in town. And so I just want to go back to what you mentioned about, you mentioned like your core values when you're forming a partnership. And sometimes people take core values and they try to come up with their own. We have had our core values, like literally my husband used to work for a company called MindSpring, which was like back in the day when it was like, internet startup days back into the late 90s, or whatever, 90s, sorry. But like they wrote really, really good core values and beliefs. And, my team, we still use those same 12 core values and beliefs to this day. But it's so important to have that, right? So that you know what you stand for, you know what you stand for. And then you can form a team that can be like the foundation of your team. And then you can keep going from there because you can always refer to those core values and beliefs.
Right. I agree. And, you'll come upon a time where those are tested, whether it's from your team members, whether it's from your business partner or business partners. And the strength of those and the veracity of those and the universal application and benefit that you might derive from those is the degree to which and how much you stick to them, after those things are tested and verified. The degree to which you stick to them is the degree to which your business will not only survive whatever test, but they become stronger as a result. And if your business does not, or your partnership does not survive as a result, that's simply a lesson learned. And now you go back in this part of life and you say, hey, that whole thing, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger kind of thing. There's something I heard somebody say the other day that might be the case. It might make you physically stronger or mentally stronger or have more oomph when you go to the next challenge. I think what happens in that case is it helps you to empathize. It helps you to empathize with somebody who might have been an aggressor or a victim. It helps you empathize, or at least understand, where both were coming from. If there was a clear business thing that was happening that, just needed to be solved and might not have been able to be resolved amicably, and someone had to step in. But I think what happens is you get to go as an individual or as a business, if you're still together, and you get to refine those things and say, all right, number 4 on our list of 10 wasn't strong enough. We missed a word. What did this experience teach us? And I think it's very important not just to post those on a wall somewhere and not just live by them, test those things and understand day by day and week by week how that is getting tested. Because if you don't go back and hold yourself accountable to realizing that something is amiss somewhere, 20-30% of the time that we're doing our business, why is it that we're not getting in line with these things? There may be something a little bit off and some action that needs to be taken, and you can adjust that. It's not the Constitution. It's not written in stone somewhere that's like not malleable or something. You can go back and tighten some of those things up and reprioritize that. Market is going to demand that. I think our ethics and our morals can get stronger and stronger, and we're not going to compromise those things, of course. But when you find out that you're missing something because you just were required in your office in a business planning meeting to throw those things together one day, and now you come back and you're like, we got a major one missing here. Go back and reapply that. And if the alignment is still there with your business partner and your team members, then great. If it's not, everyone's learned a lesson and everyone goes and does what they've got to do to be successful in life, having learned that lesson and applying it.
Yeah, I there is a couple of the core values that we have that really, like, they really make a difference. Like, one of the things that we always say is we make commitments with care and then live up to them. So in all things we do or we say we're going to do, we do what we say we're going to do, right? It's like, so if I
live up to them, I love that.
If we say we're going to do it, we are going to do it. That is one of our core values and beliefs, right? So I'm not going to tell you I'm going to close in 5 days. If I tell you I'm going to close in 5 days, I'm going to close in 5 days. You better believe it, because that is one of our core values, right? And then another one that I really like is that work is an important part of life and it should be fun. Being a good business person does not mean being stuffy and boring. And that is one of our core values, right? That's what we, as a team, that is what we believe, right? We can be really good business people and we're not stuffy and boring, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. So I think that's it. And I know we hold each other accountable to these things in meetings, and it makes for very clear, like, this is who we are and that is not who we are, and this is how we're going to operate because this is what we have agreed that we're going to do.
Right on.
And especially as the teams get bigger and bigger, then people can hold you accountable and say, hey, you said you made commitments with care, but you were just 15 minutes late to our meeting. What's up? So,
exactly.
All right, enough about that. Alan, what you got for us?
Yeah, well, I want to switch gears because what I've seen, Rob, successfully, that you've had, you've been doing a lot of these listings on a website called Doorsey that's auction based. How did you get involved in this, and why are you going down this path? And I'd love to pick your brain, because I'll be honest, I'll be the devil's advocate here. I don't see the benefit of it as a real estate agent, but obviously you're someone I respect and trust, and so would love to have a little debate back and forth on the pros and cons. Yeah, and
I think that having skepticism and reserve is a very healthy standpoint to come from. And I think, and I do want to address that, if that's okay, right from the very beginning. Anytime you bring a new way of doing things into the world of real estate or in any kind of business, the degree, everybody's got to look at this and say, to what degree is this going to help my customers and clients? To what degree is this going to help enhance my relationships and fast forward my business? How am I going to get everybody to the finish line more efficiently? Not necessarily faster, but what is the highest and best service that I can provide to my profession and to the clients and customers that I'm serving, namely our clients, right? And then when you find something that seems to do that, you give it a shot. And the degree to which your clients are and your professional liaisons are willing to go along with that to try it out, you give it a shot. And I think that's what we've been doing here with this product, Doorsey, is when we have a clear, so there's three things that I think that we have to do to make sure that this product or any given, product or service that's new to the market works. The first thing is the product and the opportunity that you have to actually market better needs to be a good fit. It needs to be a good test. You've got to understand, what does this thing do? You got to figure out, does this apply to every one of my opportunities, or does it apply to a narrow bandwidth? Where up and down the line of the kinds of opportunities that I have, and when I talk about opportunities, I'm talking about clients and properties. Both of those things. If I've got the right client and the right property, where is that along this line? And identifying that clearly. The second thing that you need to know is, okay, I've identified the right property and client along with that property that works. I got an entirely different side now that I need to absolutely positively convince that they need to engage with this. How do I engage the market? The market is buyer agents first, and then they have to be the ones to convince their buyers. That's a pretty tough row to hoe. That's an uphill thing right there, right? And then the very last thing is, once you've got these two things down and the product is going to be set to work that day, remember who you are and why you're here and why your seller hired you in the first place to do this. They hire me to bring about the best course of action, whether it's product, services, or like you said before, selling me, or whether it is that I sold them a system. They want me to maximize their equity with trust, with equity, with fairness, by obeying the law and to obey my codes of ethics. And they want me to do it as efficiently as possible to bring about the best return on their investment from the best buyer with the least amount of hassle for them. They don't care how much hassle we have in the background, but as long as it's good for them. So the degree to which that or any other product is in line with all of that, we're going to give it a shot and we'll evaluate it and we'll move on with it, as long as that product is going to stay the way it is or enhance, or we can kind of tweak some things on it. And that's why sometimes I'm willing to go in and early adopt on some things, as long as I balance that risk to my clients and the benefit to them and what we can do to make the product better if it does turn out to be a good thing. And we've had a pretty good experience with Doorsey so far. We've had some odd little things here and there, but with that, it's turning out to be an interesting component of our real estate strategy.
So you have no affiliation with Doorsey? This is a product that you use?
Not at all.
Okay. So if people aren't familiar, what I've seen from my angle is you put a listing up on the FMLS, like any other listing, and then sort of the comments when you go in and for realtor notes, hey, if you want to make an offer, auction is going to occur online at this Doorsey URL. And you seem to have preset a lot of terms. Can you walk us through sort of the presets that you've done?
So first and foremost, one of the things that I might hesitate in doing is calling it an actual auction. Okay. So when we see an auction, we see a third-party outfit taking over total control of the sale of an item, so long as the market conditions meet a particular criteria. And then we see that entity awarding the opportunity to a winning bidder or a winning buyer, and then seeing that the actual sale, purchase and sale of that item is actually taking place. And they take a pretty nice little fee in order to do that. So that would be combining an agent and a bidding platform all in one. All this is a bidding platform. It's a way to lobby your highest and best offer as a buyer, while knowing all of the terms that the seller is going to be okay with, like 99.9% of the terms spelled out in the contract, written in a predetermined contract, rather. You see the seller terms on the Doorsey's website for that listing. And then you have time to go and see that property and view all of the seller's due diligence Doorsey requires that every property listed on their site have a pre-listing inspection done. We take that a step further by actually identifying top priority repairs or amendments to the properties that need to be made. And we'll go in and overwrite some areas of the inspection report by saying, hey, here's an agent note in here. Here's a photo. We're taking it from the same angle that the inspector did for that broken thing or that mess right there. Look what it looks like now, all cleaned up. There's a receipt for repairs as part of your due diligence as well that we refer back to this. So when a buyer sees all of that, they can be well informed about what it is that they're bidding on. And then when the bidding actually starts, what you're doing is two things. Buyers are putting their highest and best offers in a very short period of time. They're seeing what their peers are doing, so they are now transparently informed about true market demand for that property. And by the way, yes, I've vetted all of the bidders and I've gotten pre-approval letters and or proofs of funds from everyone. And then the last thing that's happening is anytime someone's thinking about an escalation clause or an escalation parameter in their offer as a last-ditch effort, we're actively engaging those toward the end of that bidding period, and it's all happening at once. And at the end, the theory is we have someone who is the highest bidder. Everyone has had an opportunity at that point, as long as the technology works, to put their highest and best bid in. We announce that person as the winner of the property. And then about an hour after that, we have everybody all wrapped up with the price change in that contract template with seller and buyer signatures on it. Everyone goes to bed and they know what the story was before they put their head on their pillow, rather than having to wait through the night, wake up in the morning and say, now what happened? So it's pretty good.
So what I see though is you're a top agent in Atlanta, and you're almost taking away what I see. Like you're leveling the playing field of all buying agents out there, veteran, bulldogs, brand new, just got a license. Like there's value. Like a lot of these agents win bidding wars because they know how to craft a good contract. They know, hey, we don't need the 3 days due diligence or the pre-inspection, like all these things that I think a good agent could coach you into winning bidding wars. You're saying, nope, go to this website. We've done all the work for you. You don't get to negotiate on due diligence. It has to be a mandatory 3 days. You don't get to negotiate an inspection. Here's a report. We fixed some things we didn't. And it's an open book ledger of what the last offer was. You got 15 minutes to top it. And if you don't, that's fine. If you do, then it'll reset for another 15 minutes. And to me, it's like, wow, you're really leveling the playing field and almost taking maybe future business off your own table, because now it's like any agent with a license could just say, go to this website and bid up. And from what I see on Doorsey, it's also saying, hey, if you don't have an agent, come here and look at our properties. And so it's like, I feel like you're almost you're making the case that you don't need a real estate agent in some ways, or at least a good one.
That's a fair point. And I think you bring up a really good point. And we kind of have to go back and think, like, why are our clients hiring us from both a buyer and a seller perspective? And one of, I think they're doing, when you kind of break it down, remember when like George Carlin, like he did a comedy act and he was like taking the 10 commandments and he like went through 15 minutes of everything and he just broke it down to one commandment, and it was like, be a good person.
Yeah.
That's all it was. So I can break all of these 17 years worth of business down to like maybe a couple of things. Maybe three things that our clients are asking us to do. Listen to their expectations and understand their expectations. Number two, manage their expectations when the work gets going. Number three, deliver on their expectations. Listen, manage, deliver. Regardless of the platform that sellers, other listing agents are using, regardless of the product, regardless of the market conditions at the time. Market conditions could sway left, right, front, and center, where this product simply may not apply to almost anything on the market, may not be a good option. But I think as a good buyer agent, when you look at any given situation, you could have a property that's not on the market and a seller who's absent, maybe in a foreign country, and we got to go track them down. Property's not even for sale. You have a property that's on the market that is overpriced, and the seller's resistant to offers that have come prior to that are lower than that price. You have property that goes on the market on a Friday afternoon and no deadline for highest and best. And you're like, oh, I was just going to the lake or the beach. And now not only do I have to get in here and work on the weekend and find somebody to go show this property to me from afar, but my buyers were going to check out as well. And they're going to be so angry if they miss this opportunity. And then we have Doorsey that comes in. So I think that any given buyer agent or agent who's working with buyers, all right, I'm not going to pigeonhole anyone, can look at all of their buyers. And I think that they would be probably in a very single digit percentile if all of their buyers were the same type of people looking at the same types of opportunities. The best of us are going to be able to work with a breadth of buyers if we listen, manage, deliver on expectations, and we have those skill sets, and we work with the rules of engagements that the market owners, which are the sellers at this point, have set in order for the sellers to win and the buyers to win. But the sellers in this market are usually the ones who are controlling that conversation, that rule of engagement. So I don't know that I necessarily believe that this is taking this out of the buyer agent's hand. I don't know that it will become that. I don't know that this product will become that proliferant in the marketplace at this point. I think they've got some work to do on the product before they do that. But I do hear your concern, and it is a conversation I have to have. And it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work having that conversation with the buyer agents. And one of the things that I say is, hey, one of the good things is it does a really good job on meeting fair housing rules. Guess what? Sellers don't know who your buyers are if they don't need to until I put the contract in front of them with the buyer's names on it who just won the bidding 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't presented to them that there's an opportunity to negotiate any further. Sign the contract. Let's go. Yeah. Don't look up who they voted for 4 years ago. Don't look up and see if they have a snickerdoodle dog or something like that. None of these love letter kind of things. So that works in the buyer's advantage, I believe.
Yeah, that's the thing is like I feel like some of my success comes from like I quickly earn the trust of my clients, and if I say, hey, this is underpriced and put 100,000, it's going to go $100,000 over list price, and they'll be like, we trust you, Alan, we're going to put an offer 100,000, right? I 100% know new agents don't have that trust or confidence to say, hey, let's put an offer 100,000. So they'll only put an offer $20,000, right? And they're not even in the conversation, and they're befuddled. And then it's like, oh, we won it by $5,000 because someone else put $95,000. And so then I'm like, well, that's a skill, something I'm bringing my client is I know what things are worth. I know how to negotiate. I know how to write an offer that wins. And Rob, you're taking that away from me, man. Leveling the playing field so everyone comes in.
I got 5 words that will help your buyers understand and lockstep with you and win every time that you say to your buyers.
Let's hear it.
After listening to them and listening to what their expectations are, the moment you begin to set the preamble to managing their expectations, you say, here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
They want to know that you know what you know so that they know what they know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You manage their expectations by becoming the authority figure in there, and it better happen the way that you said it was going to happen. And if they decide to go another route, that's their decision. You want to support their decision and say, okay, I'll do whatever I need to do to help you. I'll support you in every way. I hear what you're saying. I believe this is what's going to happen. So you believe that is what's going to happen. Let's do everything and I'll do my best. Let's see what happens. And then sometimes you get surprised and what they said happens is going to happen. And you're like, oh, wow, you need to get a real estate agent license. And you need to be my new buyer agent or my new listing agent. I always compliment, folks like that because they've just taught me something.
Yeah.
But I don't revel in being right. What I actually do appreciate is when my buyers look at what we're doing and saying, okay, I see what we need to do here in order to win. I think you've convinced me. This was part of your orientation process with me. You are now coming back and applying what you taught me back to this situation. Let's do what we need to do to win. And everybody's going to be a little bit different. And it's not like I'm going and like having this heap of buyers and I'm cutting out like 90% of them and only keeping the 10% who are going to win.
Right.
We have those strategies to listen and to manage as best we can, and then to deliver on those expectations.
I 100% agree with that. And I've got one more point. I'm not just trying to poke a hornet's nest here.
No.
I think it's just a healthy devil's advocate thing. Yeah. So, on the seller side, to me, I feel like the Doorsey sort of way of selling a home is not necessarily in the best interest in the seller financially. I can understand, hey, it's a very transparent process. It's going to be very clear. So if your client's sort of nervous or anxious, like, I can definitely identify some clients who are like, this would be good for you. But I know at least a member on my team who won an auction from you was willing to go higher in price. Or if it wasn't an auction, they would have waived the due diligence and the appraisal contingency and some of these things that we couldn't negotiate on within your offer. And I've talked to other clients who've won a Doorsey, and they said the same thing. Oh, we would have gone higher if it was a blind offer, and we would have, waived some other things. And you're basically you're taking that off the table. Is that in the best interest of your sellers?
So I'd have to look into that and say, like, all right, how much higher would you have gone? Would that have come along with having to, squeeze that balloon so that the other end of this thing got a little bit bigger on some of these things? Would my seller have needed to give you a longer contingency period to check for defects, to make sure that this asset that they're putting all of this money into is actually either worth it or up to par, and this or that thing didn't need to be done? Can you put a garage in the back? You want a little longer to investigate that? What is that crawl space really like if you want to crawl all over it with 4 people for 4 hours one day? I don't know. That is a question. And I go back to the other side. What if I'd put this on the market on such and such day, and I didn't have, I went to the other extreme, right? A complete 180. I threw it on the market. We put the same price out there, and I just said, get ready, get set, go. Click the green light on the MLS button, and it's out there. No deadlines or no, we're going to do this on that day at that time. Mm-hmm. To what degree would I have gotten everyone in, and would I have everyone understand the product and be confident in what it is that they're offering when there is a very short time, when speed at that point, speed and putting the offer in might get in front of and trump any other things that people need to do to kind of like rationally understand what it is that they're doing and have confidence in that. So I think it's kind of like a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other thing. It is definitely not a perfect system. And I'll be honest, there's been a technical difficulty here and there where where we kind of pause and we say, have we actually gotten everyone's highest and best bid? And we've had to restart once, where we had a technical difficulty with that third party. Again, their system, not mine, where people had to kind of pick up and keep going. So yeah, it's I'm not going to sit here and defend it, but it is an interesting concept that has opened up a very interesting and I think necessary conversation in the way that real estate sales and representing our clients and getting them where they want to be to manage and deliver might take on some more nuances. And this is a product that's has allowed us to kind of like have that very deep and broad conversation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I have a feeling on that especially on the listing agent side of things, because sometimes you'll have listings agents that maybe only do a handful of deals a year, and now they're trying to work and exist in this market where you get 10, 20, 30, 40 offers, and they can't tell their head from their tail because there are so many contracts coming in, and some are organized enough to put together a spreadsheet, but probably many aren't. And I've had plenty of conversations with listing agents like, hey, did you actually take a look at my buyer's offer? Because this is a really good offer. We've got no financing, kind of having to walk them through. So I think this is a really good tool when we're in this sort of a crazy environment where I feel like the buyers that are making offers on a home can feel like, oh, well, there was this one at 90,000 over asking, and then there was this one at 98,000 over asking. For the buyers, it's also kind of like they can see what's happening. And I think that in this market, It feels like they're just kind of like, well, we've got to go 100 over, we think, and they kind of have the transparency. So I can see the value as well, for both the buyers, not necessarily even just the buyers agents, but the buyers the transparency it can be really good.
What I'm hearing is I see the value for new, inexperienced agents. I do not see the value for veteran agents. And I'm very capitalist, so I'm very cutthroat, and I'm like, whip them all out. So I know I probably need to be more open-minded than that. There is a product that we agree, I think, that we can rally against collectively, and that I want to hear I've seen your online post about this, and you are way more knowledgeable than I am, and that is the fees associated with what we use. And this might just be a local conversation. The FMLS, First Multiple Listing Service, which is typically the in-town MLS fees that I think we're required at this point to put our listings. And there's also a rival, something called Georgia MLS. It's a little bit wider, and doesn't have fees or not as many fees. And I was reading some of your backstory and the history of this, and if you would get kind of enlighten us what you know about it, because I know I agreed with everything you said at that point.
Sure, and I'll try to make this as brief as possible. But from the way I understand it, we do have two multiple listing systems in our area that I'd say about 80-90% of our brokers in the in-town markets, at least, do what they call compel us to list it. You're in a compelling area. You're in a very hot, very central area for that MLS coverage. Your broker can compel you to put it in that multiple listing service. Multiple listing services are nothing more than cooperating brokerages that are in and around the corner from each other and serve the same market. This is a way for them to share listings, right? Everybody kind of like looks at Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, Redfin, all these sites now. And it's hard for the general public to kind of see what is the original, what is the original information provider that is feeding all of these things. And these are from multiple listing services, right? Multiple listing systems. These things started 70, 80 years ago between brokerages, and they started out as word of mouth, and then they started printing these books and delivering to each office. Then along comes the technology age, and they had a fairly antiquated system that you could go in there and see these things. Photos started being added in the late 90s. And like I said before in the podcast, 4 photos were allowed in 2006 when I listed my property. And now we kind of forget where all of that came from. Interesting thing is most of these multiple listing systems are going to charge their broker members for being a member of that multiple listing system. Multiple listing systems are kind of like the delivery of public services that we have in city municipalities. They are our Parks and Recreation Department, fire service, police people. They're the public services of what we do in our state real estate practices, right? It's something our brokers have established to do that. So they kind of police our activity. They hold us to the law when we're listing things, making sure that we're following the rules and the laws, fair housing and all this stuff. Some of them are owned outright by realtor associations. And some of them are owned by a collection of original brokers who started those things 60, 70, 80 years ago. First multiple listing system happens to be one of the latter. Mm-hmm. That was formulated by the handful of power brokers with the big offices that were in the in-town Atlanta, Fulton County area at the time. We had the Atlanta Board of Realtors that was a strong backer of that. Then you had DeKalb County, and you had the Georgia Association of Realtors. Oh, actually, the Georgia MLS, rather, not Georgia Association of Realtors. It's all of our board. The Georgia MLS started with the DeKalb County Board of Realtors. These two MLSs have grown since then. So Georgia MLS has been started by and has always kind of operated under the guise of being a true public entity for their Board of Realtors and their user base. From an equity kind of standpoint. First multiple listing service has been operated as a profit generator for the originating brokers who started that MLS under the guise of being our public service, thing in real estate, our police force, our fire stations, and that sort of thing. What's really interesting about that is the entities that started this, from my understanding, from what I've been told and what I've seen and who I've spoken with, these folks cooked up this scheme to take a significant fee from the real estate agent's pocket for every listing sold. Okay. It is 0.12% of the sales price of your listing that either you listed as an agent and broker in MLS, or If you are a buyer agent and you brought a buyer and you were the selling broker on something, you are also charged that. So $500,000 listings listed in MLS, the listing broker gets charged $600. The selling broker or buyer's agent gets charged $600. That's $1,200. So brokers are going to bill those two agents for that because they know they're going to get a bill from FMLS from that. They're just going to pay that bill when it comes due at the end of the month. Here's the funny thing. That's a huge fee to collect on a per sold basis. But two things happen after that. Well, three things. So FMLS collects those fees and gets paid at the end of every month. FMLS looks at their P&L and they say, okay, we need to pay our operating costs from this. Very minimum. It's not that expensive to run an MLS these days, right? Next, we are going to give a huge chunk of this to the 12 original starter families, brokers, because all those guys are dead and gone a long time ago, but they all have these heirs and assigns that are inheriting these, money-making passive income type things. We're going to give them a big chunk of that. And then whatever is remaining, we are going to rebate a portion of this back to every single broker member. And if you are a broker who is listing something in that MLS, you are a broker member. Whether you're a one-person broker agent office all the way up to and including something that has thousands and thousands of agents, you're going to get some kind of rebate. This is what I understand the algorithm of that rebate to be based on. Listings in the system, number of listings in the system in the prior month, not volume closed, number of listing closed, total closed volume, anything like that. Number of listings. They go back and they reward the folks who were originally propagating the preponderance of the MLS's power by making them visible and known. And whoever's brokerage had, page after page after page after page of listings, right? Those were the ones who were rewarded accordingly, to make the MLS look bigger than it really was at the time, or to keep feeding the machine, right? So those are the brokerages that are rewarded with a higher rebate fee than those who don't have that algorithm. By and large, it sounds to me, from what I've learned from most all brokerages, your rebate is somewhere probably around a safe 50% every year of the fees that you collected. So if a brokerage collects $100,000 in FMLS fees from its agents, they push it off to FMLS, they put it through all that little filter, strain it out, you get about $50,000 back as a brokerage 12 times a year to add up to about $50,000.
This is outside their take on the commission and everything like that. And that's 100% how I understand this work.
It's called other income. When you look at all brokerages P&Ls, it's a line item called other income other than commissions earned from their member agents. Yes.
Yeah. And to me, it's a lot of times you see these really small brokerages and you're just like, how do they keep the lights on? And it's basically because of that $50,000 that they're making, yeah.
And you think about some of these brokerages, and everybody has. I'm not going to dish on anybody's business practices or why they're in business or how they make money. But you think about some of these brokerages that simply at any given point in time have more listings and aren't necessarily focused on selling those listings, but they want a large number of listings in that system.
Yeah.
These folks are probably much more dependent and much more expecting that FMLS rebate. Again, the rebate is based on number of listings in the prior month. Now, this was the last conversation I had about this about 10 years ago. And I won't name names of who I was talking to in the higher ups and some legal stuff going on with FMLS and Georgia MLS, but that's what I understand. And I haven't had anyone contest me in the meantime saying, nope, Rob, that's not how it is. So until then,
you're incentivized to put up junk listings all day. You'll make more money, whether that's happening or not, but that's exactly what the system's set up for. Two, you're incentivizing building a monopoly because for every brokerage is going to say you're required to use FMLS because that's, again, not coming out of their pocket. It's giving them an income. And so now we've got all these in-town agents forced to use FMLS only because it benefits the brokerage. And it's not a superior service. I mean, Georgia MLS does the exact same thing. None of our clients are happy with the matrix alerts that we send out. They'll go to Zillow and Realtor and Redfin, these better websites, and then send us the listing. So it's like, what are we even paying for? Like, we can now bypass this FMLS if we weren't required to, and pay $600 per transaction or whatnot, buy or sell side. I think it's ridiculous. I got to pay for the buy side because you can't prove that my client found your house on the FMLS. Like, like, how do you know that? Like I've got to pay $600 because my client bought a house that happened to be listed on the FMLS, but you're required to. Like, to me, that's not right.
So there's a few other dynamics at play. Most, I wouldn't say most, but I said there are some significant brokers out there, not just businesses, not brokerages, but brokers that are either owners of or employees or partners in any of these brokerage businesses who've been doing real estate for decades here in Atlanta and are already bought into that system and invested in that system hook, line, and sinker. They have they've made the political rounds and they've kissed the right rings and done the right kind of things. And I'm not talking about anything nefarious, of course, but they are benefiting from this as well. They are financially benefiting from it. They're on the board of the MLS. And when they are in charge of that brokerage, you're probably not going to get a lot of buy-in from them from any kind of changes. And your complaints may either go unheard, or they may position or spin this a little bit differently as they give you answers to this. But it's interesting that so many of us in the agent market not only aren't irate about this, but we literally don't know that this is so incredibly unique to the Atlanta market versus all of the 600 plus MLSs in the United States. There's only one other that's very similar to this setup, and that's an MLS in the Cincinnati market. So if you look at all 620 or 630 of these MLSs around the United States, and you could do a little blip on the chart, what is this high mark of, they're charging, they go up and down. Here's Cincinnati, and it's like Twin Towers, way up here. Mm-hmm. It's above, and everybody else is like down here, $50 a month, $100 a month, $1,200 a year, or $600 a year. Georgia MLS is a great comparison. We're paying, I believe, $25 or $30 a month from our office fees or some other types of fees to our broker, who is paying Georgia MLS a $25 or $30 a month fee for every member agent. That's it. Mm-hmm. Not a charge on a per sale or a per listing or anything else. Cost each one of us real estate agents probably a grand total of $300 and $350 a year to be a member of Georgia MLS, where that fee is double on the very first listing that you might sell at a little bit higher than median sales price range here in Atlanta through FMLS.
Such an archaic system. It's strange, huh? That is really strange.
I mean, how besides education, I mean, it's going to take agents raging against their broker, but brokers are like, we're keeping the lights on because we
get these fees and we need them.
Agents, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you see it into this, Rob?
Well, for 70 years, it's my understanding that MLS has also done a very good propaganda campaign against the Georgia MLS system. It is a deeply entrenched positioning that they have taken on. It's worked very well to position them as an inferior MLS that has particular kinds of agents and kinds of brokerages and particular kinds of properties, mostly, that are part of that system, versus their system, which is superior for other various reasons, namely being the price that the agent is ultimately paying to be a member and operate inside of that thing versus this other system. And they have no idea that 99.98% of all the other systems throughout the United States use almost, similar technology and third-party things like Matrix or Remine or Realist. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is using the same things. Mm-hmm. You literally drive 2 hours from here to Chattanooga or to Nashville or to you go out to Los Angeles. They're using the exact same system, and they're paying like 1/100th of the cost these agents are, because it's just not that expensive to run. And we're tricked into thinking, oh, this is the cost of doing business here, and it's simply not.
Yeah, like you would expect a superior system, but like, yeah, all these sort of third-party systems that's cobbled together within our FMLS, they didn't design any of them. They're just APIs that are talking to all these other programs. And it's like, where is all this other money going? Well, it's going to line those 10 original founders and then all the brokers. And we're paying extra, but we're not getting anything back. And it drives me insane. And I will go protest in front of whoever's house with you, Rob. So just
a couple of ways I think that we can get around this, and it's going to start from the agent voice, not the broker voice, the agent voice. We cannot depend on our brokers to get behind us on this change, because now you're taking money out of their pocket. Right. Actually, if you're doing that, even if you're part of a brokerage where the profit in that brokerage is redistributed among agents for, as part of profit share, that's still, taking money out of that system, that's pulling it from that P&L. So one of the ways to do this is to have, power agents inside of their brokerages. First of all, the first thing that needs to happen is everyone needs to engage with and get used to and become comfortable with and prefer the MLS that we have that is the lower cost and that just as good a system versus the other one. Mm-hmm. We're not going to change if, you're going to keep driving a massively expensive car with a huge lease rate, right? If you don't see any other option out there that does what you think that car does, like nothing else has four wheels, nothing else put gas in it to get somewhere. This one has blinkers. It's like, okay, we're not slowing down enough to realize that we can see everything else around us that works. So we got to get our agents collectively on board with equalizing their perception and their use of Georgia MLS with FMLS, and maybe taking Georgia MLS one step higher. The next thing that needs to happen would be an option of one or two things. Top agents in a brokerage go to their broker and they say, you've got a choice to make, Mr. or Mrs. Broker. We, the 5 or the 10 top agents, are coming to you and we want in on your collection of the MLS fees. We want to collect those back, or we want to negotiate our splits differently such that that is made up for us. That is going to be a significant hit to you. And if you don't do that, at least we'll depart from here and go to a brokerage where at least that is being given back to us, or where we can negotiate something like that. Don't know how far that will fly, and I don't know how willing people will be to do that. The other thing that could happen is you may have all of these brokerages where you have a much more broad-banded banding together of agents, and those are a lot of those agents in the middle. Mm-hmm. Those agents who are coughing up $5, $10, $15, sometimes $20 or $30,000 a year to the MLS to be doing, our nice bandwidth average, busy agent business. And we all get so good at Georgia MLS, we collectively go to our brokerages one day, 75, 80% of us, and we say, we no longer need FMLS. Yeah. We would like for you to not renew your membership with that MLS next year. All of our business and everything that we're doing, from getting properties in front of our clients in a right kind of system and syndicating out to multiple listing services, all happening through this other system anyway. And I'd really love to be able to steward my extra $20,000 or $30,000 a year that's otherwise going to that system to things that will better enhance my client's business and bring you, the broker, more money. Right? I mean,
hearing those options, I thought of a third. Like it's the top agents who are affected the most because they have the most listings and they have the most, like they're paying the most fees out, right? If you got the top agents in all these brokerages and say, look, we're going to start our own brokerage that doesn't use the FMLS, and then all the top brokerages, and then that middle that you named did the same thing, and all of a sudden the other brokerages are going to be like, oh, we got to follow along, or we're going to lose all of our top people. I'll
tell you something. There is already a hint of something like that going on in the top brokerages, but it's the other way around. Go to any given neighborhood in Zillow or Realtor.com and try to find, here's a better way to do it. So some agents in some brokerages still use IDX, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. And a lot of times in the Atlanta market, our IDX providers who are providing those listings on our websites, right, from the MLS, are giving us a choice or allowing us to both. They say, hey, who do you want to syndicate from on your website? Do you want FMLS or do you want Georgia MLS? Mm-hmm. The very few of us say, okay, we'll just do both. Well, that means you got 2 listings for everything. Remember when Realtor.com would show 2 listings? It was annoying. It was like, this is Georgia MLS and FMLS. By and large, most of us will go with one or the other. For a long time, I did IDX listings on my website only from Georgia MLS because FMLS started pulling more shenanigans and charging IDX providers extra money for IDX connectivity services. So I said, no, I'm going to go with Georgia MLS, and they've got more listings on there anyway because they cover more markets. I looked in my IDX on my website about 3 years ago, and I'm looking at property in my neighborhood. The top 3 listings were missing. They were not there.
Yeah.
And I go into Georgia MLS directly. They are not listed there, but they are listed in FMLS. So some of these luxury brokers who have agents with higher end listings are going on ahead and giving their agents, you don't have to list in Georgia MLS. You know, they're the cheaper MLS anyway. Go into FMLS and put it in there. It's fine. You know, Georgia MLS doesn't do. When's the last time you've been to Georgia MLS and even seen your listing on there? Just don't. Yeah. Or they are not that quick to have their agents comply with a compelling area. So from that perspective, that is yet another way that they are keeping up the appearances that FMLS is the preferred MLS of choice by not even compelling their agents to list in Georgia MLS. So it's a bit of a mind thing. It's a propaganda thing with the folks that are doing the money and have the power. So
I think this is going to be, at least for the Atlanta-based agents, one of the most educational podcasts we've ever done. This is definitely eye-opening. The conversation should not end here, Rob. I'd love to just keep,
and organize a strike like all the Europeans were doing.
There's so much money being pulled out of our pockets that for every agent at every level, that's just feeding the higher ups. And
one of the ways to look at this, if I had to play devil's advocate against everything that I just said, and this is a very something we would have to look at. Are these brokerages dependent on that income, and are they doing something with that income? The majority of them are. The majority of them are subsidizing or buying things that their agents may need to operate accordingly to make them even more money in those businesses. So what are we going to do to those brokerages if we collectively rally against this thing and not see further into that? And I think it's incumbent upon all of our brokers who want to defend that income that's coming in at our effort, the agent's effort. I think it's important for those brokers to say what it is that we're doing with that. And I think the more we have transparency in that, the more we can kind of move forward and say, all right, is this a good thing or is this not so great a thing? I think, I went to another brokerage a couple years ago, and I was paying a way bigger split than I had been paying ever in my life. I was paying $18,000 a year to one company, and then I went to this other one. They were taking 10% from me for every single transaction with no cap on it. Well, they ended up getting $60,000 or $70,000 from me. I don't think that I got what I was paying for from that instance, but that was the agreement that I made. Well, when I left that company, I said, all right, did I survive? Did I thrive? Were my clients served well? They were. What if I took that money that I was taught to basically, disengage from and forget about? What if I had that back and could put that back into my business? And I'm booming now. I mean, there's so much that you can do with that amount of money. So when we think about this amount of money that we as agents have just automatically just put away, I think all of us would like to know that it's coming back to benefit us. And if it is, and it's rather indirect, but our brokers can explain that, I think they owe us that explanation before we take that away altogether without all of that knowledge about what's going on there.
Yeah. And I think the brokers are good business people in that if that $50K delta, Rob, if you put that into your business, how you chose to put it in your business, that would explode your business, which would make more money for the broker. Like that money could still flow through the brokerage I guess until you hit the cap, but you'll probably attract more teammates on your team and things like that. And your listings are going to you're putting that brokerage's sign in the yard. Like it's all, it's.
So there is something to be said now, not to carry this any further, but take a look at any of these high performing agents who create high performing teams. And then what happens to them once they reach a certain level. Mm-hmm. They reach such a level of volume and business. When they are inside another one of these large brokerages in town, I'm not going to name anyone, but all of them have their different negotiations that they do with agents. You look at the MLS fee that brokerage is collecting, and quite possibly putting a wall in between that agent and their team and any kind of use otherwise of those fees directly. That is a significant amount of money. And it most likely is one of the major deciding factors for those large teams to break away from that brokerage and become their own brokerage.
Right.
There is something to be said about that MLS, that FMLS fee, basically encouraging the independence of the agent to move into brokerage licensure and moving into having their own business so that they can be the beneficiary of that fee. Something to actually look forward to as your own broker of your own office. Is that fair? Is that something to do? I will say that large brokerages will continue to lose these large agent teams because of that one reason right there. And if they don't want to lose that, and they want to provide more value and keep that agent team as part of their brokerage, which basically brings the water up for everybody, stop this.
Yeah. Wow, I love it. I could talk another hour about this. We're out of time, Rob. If people want to follow up with you on referrals from San Francisco, like my clients wanted to do, or just talk to you about the auction sites and the MLS, what's the best way to reach out to you?
You can do me at phone 404-906-5857, or just shoot me an email to rob@robsmith.com.
Thank you so much, Rob. You're a veteran and highly respected, and thank you for giving us an hour of your time today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll see you around.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Agent Upgrade Podcast. If you are an agent looking for a new mortgage lender, start with Jasmine at jasmineteam.com. If you want to learn about real estate investing and working with investors, check in with Alan at thehouseofac.com. See you next time on Agent Upgrade.